What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video with me, Ben Rogashan, aka the Seattle Data Guy. Today, I wanted to talk about interviews. In particular, I want to talk about some do's and don'ts as you guys are getting prepared for your technical interviews, whether that be for software engineering, data science, or really any other form of technical interview. All of these tips will probably apply to you, whether you're getting ready for your first interview or your last interview or wherever you are in the whole process. I think all of these tips will probably be helpful, and they're coming from someone who's had the opportunity to interview at a few different places and honestly fail at many interviews. But let's see if I can help you succeed just a little bit more by giving you a few quick tips of gotchas that I had while I was preparing for my technical interviews. For the first one, the painful lesson comes from interviewing at Amazon. The thing about working for a lot of these big tech companies is they're often very focused on numbers. And honestly, if you've worked at other companies, they may not be focused as much on what your work is actually doing in terms of calculating every performance improvement that you do. So for my first interview with Amazon, I recall going in feeling pretty good about it. And then came more of the behavioral section where they were asking me, what kind of work I've done, what kind of work I'm doing. And I was going on about all the technologies I was working with, whether it be ASP.NET, C Sharp, SQL, Java, etc. And I didn't really mention anything about how the work I was doing was improving the overall workflow for my company. And it didn't take long before the project manager or whoever it was stopped me and was like, okay, but how much time did that save? Or how many more calls did you guys receive? And that's when I realized I had never really thought about that. I never really thought about what kind of impact my work was having, but instead was really focused more on the work that I was doing from a technical aspect. And I think that's very common for engineers in general, is we often are very focused on trying to solve a problem and not really focus on what that problem is trying to solve in terms of what is the performance improvement? This is also, I think, very common just with less mature engineers because we're, again, so very focused on learning technical things. We're not as focused on the actual business impact. All right, so for my next tip, and this is something coming from someone that's done interviews as well as someone who has taken plenty, do spend some time talking through your solution for your problem. It's very easy, especially as engineers, to just start writing your code or writing your solution without taking a moment to stop and really think through the various aspects of the problem and what the interviewer is asking. Whether you're a software engineer or data engineer, etc., you're likely going to need to list out the different components or high-level infrastructure pieces that you'll need as you're designing whatever solution the interviewer is kind of looking for. So take a moment, take a breath, whatever the question is, and don't start writing right away. Take a moment, breathe, think about your solution, think about it holistically, and write out your different thoughts, and then take a moment and see if the interviewer will give you any further hints. Sometimes if you're really close, they'll try to just push you that last little bit anyways, especially when it comes to those high-level design interviews. You don't want to get too far in the weeds without really knowing where you're going. Hopefully, this will ensure that you will more likely provide an answer that the interviewer is looking for, and you won't go on some rabbit hole, which I've seen some people do. And here's something for all those people who are just starting out in their careers. Do you practice with someone at school? I honestly was very lucky to have someone who was very competent as far as a programmer. They're now like a software engineer at Workday, and they've also worked at Amazon and a few other companies. And they really spent the time with me to practice my problems. It really gets you comfortable with hard problems, to just walk through solutions on whiteboards, in various situations where you might not know the answer. Because the thing is, you can hope that maybe the question they're asking you or the algorithm they're going to reference is something you've studied before, but more than likely you haven't, and you're going to need to work with the interviewer to kind of get to your final solution. So I recommend, if you're still in school in particular, but also, sometimes your school will have a continuing program where if you were a student, you might be able to go to their career center and practice these interviews. Personally, it was a great help, and I think it helped me get a lot of the interviews and jobs that I have today. All right, so now let's talk about some don'ts. First, don't let one bad round beat you. If you're doing tech interviews, you're likely going to have 4 or 5 rounds, especially if you go and interview at a FANG. It's really easy to let one round really demolish you. And you don't know. The truth is, oftentimes, if you do well enough in the other 4, it might wash out that we all run into a question that we just get stuck on for one reason or another. We just get stuck on trying to write a solution that's ugly and gross, and we should probably just restart. Don't let it bring you down. Let it just kind of push you forward to that next interview and that next round. All right, so next, for don'ts. Don't assume you know what questions you'll be asked. I think the craziest example of this is one of my friends who is a data scientist was asked a question about a binary tree. Yeah, you heard me, not a decision tree, a binary tree, something that they had never worked on in their lives, and they were kind of thrown off by this. It's like they didn't even know where to start. So it's really important not to assume that you know what questions will be asked just because of your role. Different companies treat different technical roles slightly differently. In some cases, a data engineer is more like a software engineer that just programs on data. In other places, it's more like a data architect or a BI developer who uses pipelines tools. It really ranges. If you have a good recruiting partner, they should be providing you information on this. But do ask, and hopefully they provide you clear and concise information on what you'll be asked. At the end of the day, it is kind of their responsibility to tell you what to be prepared for, because again, you can spend all day preparing and still get your answers wrong. So I would really recommend asking and seeing if they can give you any background. And most of the really big tech companies will try to provide you what they're going to ask you. Have you ever gotten so stuck on a solution that you just keep writing the same problem over and over again, or writing the same solution and writing more if statements and trying to get through this problem? This next tip is for you. Don't get stuck on one solution. If you're constantly having to write a mile-long if statement, it's likely you've put in the wrong answer. Most questions that you get asked as a data scientist, data engineer, software engineer usually have pretty clear-cut answers as far as they should be pretty smooth. If you're having to put in a 30-level nested if statement or something crazy like that, maybe you're going down the wrong path. It's very likely. So just sometimes stop and think, hey, am I actually answering this question correctly, or am I just trying to brute force it? Again, sometimes brute force is the only way, but if you have the time, maybe try restarting. All right, and my final don't for everyone out there is don't let one bad interview beat you down. Again, similar to the don't let one round beat you down, but don't let one bad interview beat you down. Honestly, the interviews I failed at were the ones that I learned the most. You failed at that interview, and now you kind of know what you need to work on. That's how I always took it. It was like, oh, here are the gaps in my knowledge. Here's what I don't understand. And that's what it is for you. It's an opportunity to learn, and hopefully you'll do better in the next interview. So I just want to wish you guys good luck, and hopefully these do's and don'ts help prepare you for your next interview. Thank you guys so much for this video, and good luck out there. Bye.